Hello and welcome back. It is the final recap of the tournament that I played in August. That is the Newport Chess Congress of 2025, where I have currently gone 2.5 out of 4, and that is with 1 win and 3 draws. No losses so far. I've had some tough pairings. I've had a lot of blunders and a very, 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 very heartbreaking round 3 where I had just a better position against the second seed and just decided to repeat. But today is the final day. After a pretty solid draw in the opening of the day, later on in the afternoon, I came back to play the final game. And I was there for a fight. I wanted to try and gain the extra point. And with 3.5 points, I could have been in good contention for a good placing at the end of it. But also it would have guaranteed me the rating prize. So let's see. I have black. Opponent plays e4, and of course, as you know, we go in c5. After knight f3, e6, I thought we were going into a main line. Unfortunately, knight c6, not knight c6, knight c3 came. So this is a tricky little line to try and move order you into stuff that you don't normally play. I played a6, which I've marked as interesting. It's a best move according to the computer, and that I recalled. But after some consideration, I think knight c6 here is better. Because after d4 takes, I can go straight into queen c7, and this is the line that I normally play, the Taimanov, and it stops this bishop f4 move. Instead, with a6 after d4, which was played, takes, knight c6, and I'm in a slightly different version of the Taimanov with this a6 move being inserted first, which gives black white the extra tempo to go bishop f4, which I think is the best move here. Knight takes d4 is what I played. My idea was that after takes and d6, I'm threatening a fork. It's actually slightly inaccurate, a little bit too ambitious. This is becoming quite weak, and this is actually a good knight that you want to keep. I think from memory, I was on d6. I was not so happy about takes and takes, because I didn't like the idea that I'd have this structure. But pushing d5 is completely fine. e5 is just a permanent weakness. I can develop naturally and everything's great. So d6 would have been the better move here. I didn't go for this. I went for knight takes d4, and after queen takes, now d6. White is a lot better. If they find long castle, which is pretty natural. Yeah, computer says +2 here, so just basically winning. Luckily, bishop b3 came, and it's now about +0.5. So I wasn't out of the woods yet. I played knight e7, slightly inaccurate. Knight f6 was probably better. It's just the more logical square, and I don't know why I didn't do it. Maybe I was considering some of this, but I think also I was a little bit tunnel visioned with this idea of, rerouting this knight here. But the problem is it just blocks this bishop, and this bishop is very important in keeping this square solid, and just in general, this knight is better placed here. So after knight e7 long castles, I played knight c6, gaining this tempo. Queen d2 comes, and I go b5, which is pretty standard. a3 is wrong, it's too slow, and I thought this was weird as well. Apparently computer says h4. It's baffling to me too. I can't really explain it. I think your castle just try and attack is the idea. I don't know why they'd go with h4 over f4 though. f4 seems more logical and in the spirit of the Taimanov. But anyway, a3, and this allows this really nice move queen a5, and I felt really happy here. And indeed the engine says, yeah, I have equalized with queen a5. Knight a2 comes, which is pretty logical. It stops this threat of coming with a tempo. I traded here. I thought rook takes seemed slightly more obvious, because after this and this, you have pressure on this backwards pawn. But bishop takes d2, apparently computer says that's best. I play bishop b7, just getting my bishop on this nice diagonal. And then bishop d3 comes, which is a total inaccuracy. More logical is just f3, defending this pawn a different way, because this bishop is actually fine here. And also, after bishop d3, you just get hit with this really nasty tempo 95, which I played immediately, and I saw my opponent go, yes, and start nodding. So here I felt really confident. I am more than equalized. I've got a decent position. I've got good space on the queen side here. I'm a few moves away from castling. I've got this really super strong knight, this bishop pair who's going to be mine. And indeed, the computer reflects that, says I have a small edge. Rook h1, pretty logical, defending that pawn one more time. And I took a while here trying to figure out if I wanted to take and let white defend this pawn and get a really nice center. I ended up deciding that this was actually a good idea. After this, I spent even more time trying to figure out what was the next best plan. I believe bishop e7 is just fine, or even just like king e7 and just guarding the center with the king. It's pretty safe here because there's no queens. I went for this plan with g6. It kind of puts a blunt on this pretty standard plan of pushing f4, f5. And also it gives me an opportunity to plant this bishop along this diagonal. After bishop c3, I had bishop h6 prepared, and after king b1, castles. It's not the most accurate plan. I've given up my advantage here, and now it's just zeros. And again, as you can see, the computer says it's good to ingrain this bishop into this weak square, which, after a weird move g3, I think the idea was just to facilitate this push without hanging this pawn. I sort of baited it out with moving my rook here because bishop f6 now comes, but it's okay because I wanted to double here. I think better was to put it on e8 to support either this or this in the future, and not have to deal with this tempo. But this, of course, allows d4, which is the very, very important move in this position. You want to take the full center. It still equals according to the computer, but this was the only move to continue with an advantage. I then decided to go bishop g7 just to trade off these bishops, which we did indeed do. And now e5 came. e5 is a total mistake. And interestingly, I couldn't really discern why. The first move that came to my mind was bishop f3, and this is in fact the top computer move. It tells me that I am winning here. Why? Because of this insane sequence. This bishop is attacking this rook. Rook d3 is the best move in this case. After rook d3, we have this really nice move, bishop g4. And this bishop g4 is setting up this threat of pinning the rook to the bishop. Bishop g4, rook d2 is the only move here. And now I can take. Why, you ask? Well, after all of these traits, rook e5, rook a d8, knight b4, threatening this pawn, but we don't care because we take this pawn. Rook takes, knight takes now this pawn, but I have rook d2, and I'm picking up this pawn now. So rook takes b5, and I grab this pawn, and apparently this is winning for me. I didn't see that far into the future. Bishop f3, I thought, okay, the rook just moves, and now what? The idea is that this bishop is placed better, I think, outside here of the pawn chains rather than being stuck, possibly behind here. And so my first instinct was correct. I just didn't see anything concrete. After e5, I saw that the idea was that they wanted to try and cause problems here. And so I wanted to figure out what to do with this pawn. I obviously didn't want to shut down this because this would kill my bishop. It was a similar situation in that semi-Slav in round 3, where we have this structure and this bishop is just dead. So I knew this wasn't an option. Of course, taking here is not so great. Because you end up giving white this really strong pawn. F4 is coming. And you either trade and surrender the control of the file, or you move this rook and you surrender the control of the file. So I spent some time here and decided to play rook a d8. Excuse me, I'm a little ill. Rook a d8 to not have to give up this file should a trade ever take place. Knight c3, just rerouting the knight, getting it to a better square. And here I am still better. I still have this bishop f3 move, which gives me a winning position. But instead I blunder, or rather make a mistake. I do this trade. Now the problem is that rook takes d1, and this is now just a draw. There's not much else for me to do. Just as a side note, sorry, I forgot to tell you, after e5, d5 is the best move in this position, and it's equal after e5, says the computer. The idea being that you just have this super solid pawn structure, and it's very, very hard for white to make any progress, really. So yes, anyway, I took rook takes, whoops, rook takes, and now it's just a draw. As the computer says, you have to take rook takes d1 here. I paused for a minute and I realized that this position was just a dead draw. There's just nothing here. And I thought, well, what I could take, and then what? I don't know. I thought I'd play for one last trick. Bishop takes e4. The idea was that you can't take because then you lose the rook. Of course, this is a ridiculous idea, really, because of this great move, king c1. Now, the idea is that this is threatened and you've defended this rook. And so lots of things are hanging all at once, and this actually blunders into a lot better endgame for white. It's plus 0.5 now, so white has a lot better chances. If I'd have just taken and offered the draw, it's a dead draw because this king is too slow. I have enough time to cause problems on this side. With this extra tempo and both pieces hanging, I'm forced to do something about it. Instead, I went bishop e4, hoping for a final trick, king c1. And then I took the rook. And after king takes d1, this is the difference. This knight is still in play and attacking this bishop rather than having to take this rook. The draw was declined with king takes d1, and I went back bishop b7. f4, according to the computer, is a mistake. You have to play king e2 and try and get in here to cause problems. God knows, this endgame is really complex. So f4 is a mistake, and now it's like dead zeros again. You've lost all winning chances. And then one of the most heinous series of moves occurred. As you can tell, we are not professionals, and this was just a total blunderfest. Apologies about that. I am getting emailed. I thought, right, let me just gain some space and stop any progress with this g-pawn. h5. Ooh, it's a total blunder. Why, you ask? Because g4 is prevented. That is true. I win the pawn. But that's not the problem. h4 comes, and this structure is now completely fixed. And the idea is that I have pawns all on light squares, and I have no good breaks to try and get out of it. g5 is the best attempt. And apparently computer says 92 takes, and white is just better. So after h5, I blunder the game away. But white goes king e1. And gives me a chance to equalize. I have to play this g5 move to try and go for this break apart this structure, and try and free up the position a little bit. But I go king f8. Another blunder. Because king d2 now, apparently, is completely winning. God knows why. King f8, instead b4 comes. I think the idea is to stop this king from being able to make any progress. And then king e7. Which is, I mean, okay. King f2, we each make perspective progress. Again, at this point, white has a +1 advantage, so is got a good chance at winning. And here, as you can say, f5, which is what I considered briefly. I've marked it as interestingly. And after takes, I am just about holding on. But I just didn't like that there was 3 connected pawns here, and this felt a little bit weak. And the difference is it's allowed my king to come closer to the center. You want an active king in the endgame. Unfortunately, I went king f8. So now I'm just shuffling back and forth, thinking that I have a fortress and there's no progress for white to make. h3. It's trying for that progress, but it's actually the wrong idea. King g7. Again, another blunder. Instead of h3, computer says I need to play king e7 back, and I have a slightly better chance. But king g7, now I'm totally losing with king e3. Again, apparently this king can cause problems here. Who knows? Who knows? Endgames are tricky. I can't even begin to explain this endgame. But after king g7 and h4, white offers a draw. And computer here says that white is better, +1.5. But white offered that draw, and I accepted it, realizing that this knight could cause problems. Now, the way for white to make progress here is to trade these pawns and plant this knight here. And apparently, you do this weird thing with the knight to get somewhere here, and then you march the king in, break, and apparently you're winning. I mean, I don't even know. The computer's crazy. I don't really understand this, but there we are. I got away with a draw in the final round, and yeah, I mean, I think I played decently in this tournament. I think, excuse me. I think that it was a decent first showing. It was very solid. I got away with a few things. Again, lots of interesting things to take from this tournament. Great things to learn. But yeah, first tournament back to classical chess, and I am 3 points out of 5. Let me put it on here. 3 out of 5, which continues my +1 score. So I'm +1. I have a performance rating of 1613. Unfortunately, that doesn't get counted towards the FIDE because I only played 2 FIDE players. You have to play at least 5. So unlucky there, but I am due to play another tournament in October, which should give me my performance rating. But other than that, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for listening to these recaps. Hopefully you enjoyed them. If you learned something, that's great. If you laughed at my chess, that's also great. I'm also laughing. But yeah, a pretty solid performance. 3 out of 5 +1, and I'm happy to say I did get that rating prize. And so, yeah, a successful tournament, I would say. With that being said, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed those recaps. I will be back soon with more content. Definitely going to be streaming more. So keep an eye out on that. Links to everything in the description, Discord, Twitch, all there. But Discord will give you the updates for what I'm doing and when. Other than that, thank you very, very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. Take care, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye-bye.